What is up, everybody? Jester here, and behind me you see my third and final base place location when it comes to being a brand new player in Conan Exiles. There's thralls here that are going to help you along the way as simple companions or as fighting thralls for your purge base. There is also plenty of gear here as well as wealth, but there's also some materials here that you're going to need to get your farming to that final high-end level when it comes to being able to collect resources. We got so much to talk about here. Let's get right into it. The area that we're talking about today is B11, otherwise known as Mounds of the Dead, and there is actually a ton of stuff here that is going to be extremely helpful going forward. For the purpose of doing the first part of what we want to do up here, I've made kind of a small base very near to Mounds of the Dead. There's actually a second location that I think is actually better real estate. We're going to get to that in a moment. But as you can see, we've just kept it very simple. We have a Wheel of Pain, and then inside we have a few furnaces with a dismantling bench and some food. That's really about all we've got up here because that's all we really need. The main attraction that I'm interested in this location, you can clearly see that right outside, this is that Sumerian Berserker that we talked about in the last episode being one of the better fighters. This is a 100% spawn for that particular thrall. You can get these in bulk here, and this is going to come in very handy when it comes to thinking about purge bases and keeping them staffed. It kind of doesn't matter if they're male or female. All of the stats stay the same, and about every 15 minutes or so, you can get you a new one. Just a very, very good spot to think about setting up this outpost if you're on a solo server. If you're on an official server, I'm sure this area is pretty congested, so just keep that in mind. But if you can get yourself up here and get pretty close, you can have all these berserkers that you're ever going to need. Another thrall that you probably are sleeping on at this point is going to be the Sumerian Fighter 3. And the reason that I like these is for your purge base, they make excellent tar dumpers. They're going to have a little bit higher hit points when it comes down to it. And these Fighter 3s are absolutely everywhere. And then also in this spot, very often you will see these Bearer 3s, which is going to make this a really viable spot, even though certain resources aren't here. And we're going to do this kind of live because I have a couple of these actually in my inventory to show you what you can get out of these supply materials, because it's actually quite good. So let's pop that over here. And the first one out of the gate, you can see we got 250 bear pelt, 500 alchemy base from these Bearer 3s. Now, this doesn't happen with the 1s or 2s, but because we don't have a good source of ichor up here, there's no spiders and stuff, this is going to be super good for getting all of that alchemy base you're going to need to make the layered fur, to make the layered silk, to make the hardened leather, all of that kind of stuff that you need for those end game level type of gear sets. And they often, very often, are here when it comes down to it. These Bearer 3s, I run into them at least, a couple, 2 out of 5 times, 3 out of 5 times. There's also a couple of cages here for pretty good thralls. I've pulled quite a few things out of there. But there's one other thrall up here that I think everybody's kind of looking for. And that thrall is going to be the Dalancia Snow Hunter. I think a lot of people love this thrall, and even I mentioned in the last video, she's probably even a little bit better than the Sumerian Berserker because she starts with about 200 extra health, which is excellent when it comes to a fight. My issue with her is she's not a guaranteed spawn up here. You could go 3 or 4 runs and never see one. You might go 3 or 4 runs and get one every time. It just kind of depends. So I think when it comes to accessibility, the Berserker is a little bit better, but don't count her out. If you see her, pick her up. She's an excellent fighter. Another thing I love about this area is in each of those buildings, there's other thralls that you can get, including crafters. So if you don't have those from down at the cave at Sinner's Refuge, you can get some of them up here. They're a little tougher to get because the enemies do hit a little bit harder. But there's also tons and tons of boxes here that you're going to start to be able to accumulate some gold and silver that you can put in your treasury to actually initiate those purges. And since we have a higher level of danger up here, we're able to get a little bit better reward than you would, say, down south. Here you see we're getting star metal weapons, we're getting some medium fur type armor, and by the way, that medium tacet there, if you put that in the disassembly bench, you're going to get layered fur back out of that, and that's going to come in handy here in a couple episodes when we start crafting the really high-end gear for our thralls in the purge base. But we'll get there when we get there. Just know that there's tons and tons of good stuff up here to collect, and it won't take hardly any time to get a purge base completely staffed and at least get some gear on them. Other enemies in this area are the white, and these guys actually hit really hard, but they give pretty good loot. Here you can see we're going to get some glowing goop and a little bit of bone. We can turn that into bone meal. The glowing goop can be used to make the glowing essence or whatever that potion is that we're going to use in some other things, including water breathing down the road. But the other thing is if you come in and you actually hit these guys, sometimes you end up getting witchfire powder, which is also going to be used in certain recipes, as well as some other stuff. So the resources are here, but that's not even all. The Crimson Lotus also spawns up here at the mounds, and that's used in certain potions, but metal is just in absolute abundance up here. It's insane. Not to mention plenty of trees and stone. You're not going to have any trouble finding any of that stuff. Some other things that I haven't mentioned that are actually here as well. There's at least one cooking recipe. There's one brewing recipe. There's alchemical decor recipe. There's a couple of different emotes. I mean, this area kind of has it all. But what if I told you there's another spot that might even make better sense when it comes to the location, and it's just up the hill? We need only to go to C11, which is right next door to where we were, to find Stargazer's Crest. And I just absolutely love this area. And the reason is, and you can see I've built a base here, and I know everything's kind of square and blocky, but what I typically do is build for function over fashion, and everything here is a working base. Each one of these is its own little department. We've got alchemy, we've got armor, we've got our smelter, we've got a blacksmith down the way there. Everything has a purpose here. And the thing that I love about this area is not only is there another cage that I've actually pulled tier 4 drivers out of, which is where we found that one over there, but I've also seen the Sumerian Berserker that will spawn up here from time to time. I've seen the Dalancia Snow Hunter spawn up here from time to time, as well as the Lionel, who's the tier 4 dancer for up here near the mounds. And again, this is another good spot to find those Sumerian Fighter 3s. And the jailer here has got pretty good gear on them. There's also some loot here that you can use and break down if you need to, or just get free hides here in the loot chests. But another big draw to this area is the iron. It's just tons and tons of iron here in this particular area. And I think that's just going to help you going forward with everything for the most part. Now, while this area isn't perfect, brimstone is kind of lacking in this area, so I'm going to call this a BYOB, meaning bring your own brimstone. Steelfire isn't the only thing you're going to need brimstone for up here. This is also the area where you're going to find the 2 remaining resources we are going to need to get into endgame tools and weapons, that being star metal and black ice, and this location makes them both very, very accessible. Now, just as a quick point of order, I do want to point out that you are going to have the specialist ammunition 3 feet unlocked, and you're also going to need what I consider the best of the fireball cauldrons, the precision, because it's going to save you a ton of resources when you're making the other ingredient that's really important here, and that's the dragon powder. Without the precision fireball, it's like 50 crystal and like 75 steel fire per dragon powder. The other stuff is pretty easy to come by, but you can see now brimstone's already coming in handy for just the dragon powder. And then you're going to need some iron head arrows and some other things in order to make explosive arrows. And again, don't forget to get that feat unlocked. The reason I don't recommend that you build any further north than this is that most of these spawns, when it comes to star metal, they're not static. They can kind of appear just about anywhere, and you're going to see them pretty clearly because they'll be little smoking rocks. And to get into these, we have to break the outer layer. So that is where the explosive arrows come in. We can now do that, and then we can come over here with a pickaxe or a pick, and we can now harvest the raw star metal ore. But in order to make star metal bars and actually be able to use everything, we need one more ingredient, and that's the black ice. And for me, I kind of deliberately set my far building right up here on the edge of this because there's a path that comes straight up here. And you can pretty much see there's another couple of star metal deposits that happen there. A lot of them happen on the other side of the mountain, and there's one right in the middle of our way here. So usually there's some star metal that you can get. But when it really comes down to it, we're going to be trying to come up here and then go to this direction, because there's a few things that we're going to look for up here, one of which is black ice. The other is going to be this golem over here, because when you kill him, you're able to get blood crystals from him. So then you can actually do a few different dungeons, and you could buy some golem parts or whatever from a vendor. But mostly what we're here for is the black ice. And I do also want to point out that this isn't the only spot where you can get black ice pretty cleanly in this area. If we come straight back this way and just follow the actual path here, kind of along the ridge line of the mountain, we are going to come to another area just over this way that has quite a bit more. And these rock noses aren't all that tough, especially if you're at level 60, but this should give you all the star metal and all the black ice you're going to need. Now remember, I told you this is going to be a bring your own brimstone type of zone. And the recipe when it comes to star metal is 2 pieces of star metal ore, 1 piece of black ice, and 1 piece of brimstone. And then when you hit start, you're crafting star metal bars. Now, as long as you've got the knowledge unlocked to make the star metal tools and or the star metal weapons, you're not going to have any trouble keeping yourself in stock with these things. We're going to be doing some stuff later that's going to pretty much make the star metal weapons obsolete, and then we can take any future star metal weapons we get, break them down to dismantler, and we basically get free star metal. So it's kind of a loop where you don't have to farm star metal forever, but the more you can get quickly, the better off you're going to be, because you'll be able to do repairs on your tools and or your weapons, and sometimes even your gear. This area up here at Mounds is just unbelievable. With all that being said, I really believe that this area up around Stargazers and Mounds is about as important an area as you can possibly get. And that's why on official servers, it's probably going to be extremely crowded up here. But if you have the opportunity to make a base nearby, you're going to be in really good shape getting all these resources. In the next episode, we're going to talk really briefly about sorcery and some of the harder things to get in your sorcery journey. But more importantly, we're going to talk about the last thing you get as a reward for your sorcery journey, and that's going to be the teleporter stone. Because on 1520, I saw a lot of people that wanted to build massive bases at every location they went to, and that was terrible for official server health. Lag is a real thing when it comes to that, especially with people that do a lot of foundation stacking, when all you really need is a teleporter to get where you want to go, get what you need done, and then get back to a main base where you can kind of refine those type of things. So we're going to talk about my locations for that in the next one. If you're into that, like the video and subscribe, because I've still got lots more in my head, including some dungeon tutorials and how to get through one of the toughest dungeons in the game with really not too much trouble. But until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching to the end, and we'll see you soon. Bye.